Hello, beautiful woman and entrepreneur. This is Blair, Rhianna, and welcome to episode 8 of the Aligned Entrepreneur podcast, which just blows my mind. I am so excited that we are on episode 8. I just feel so honored to be able to bring you a new episode every week. And thank you so much for sticking with me through the unfurling and navigating of what has been a very new process for me. As I said, this is episode 8, which of course means all of the show notes can be found at www.blairrihanna.com/8. And this week we are talking all about how to overcome overwhelm. And I will also say, before I forget, that make sure you stick around to the end of this episode because I will be announcing the winner of the podcast launch competition. So you may remember that back when I first launched this podcast just over a month ago, for the first 2 weeks, whoever entered the competition by submitting a review on iTunes and rating the podcast and providing me with their email address went into the draw to win a 90-minute business visioning and soul alignment session with me, where I would help them get crystal clear on the 6-month vision for their business. And then I was going to do my own energetic shamanic alignment practices to remove the subconscious blockages that are causing that vision from being a reality right now. And because it is July and the perfect time to be unfolding a 6-month vision, I will be announcing the winner at the end of this podcast. So be sure to stick around. Welcome to the Aligned Entrepreneur podcast, the place to be for your weekly fix of divine feminine wisdom, empowered business mindset, and practical spirituality to help you break free from the hustle, find your flow, and grow your online business on your own terms, the feminine way. I'm your host, Blair Rhianna, and it is time to get aligned. Now, whether you are brand new to business, whether you're trying to get your new business established, or you've been at the business game for 1 or 2 years now, overwhelm is a very real part of business. Because as entrepreneurs, we have to wear so many hats. We are the bookkeeper, we're the strategist, we're the graphic designer, we're the healer, we're the public speaker. There's so many parts that go into being an entrepreneur and actually making your online business successful that it can feel like we're constantly juggling a million balls in the air, or we've just got these pieces to a gigantic puzzle that it can be hard to work out what bits go where. And particularly now that we are halfway through 2018, it seems to be triggering a whole bunch of crazy. I don't know whether you've noticed this, but all of a sudden, all of the ads on Facebook and all of the social media posts, they're all about, oh my God, there's only 6 months left in the year. Have you reached your goals yet? And there's this kind of urgency around July. And definitely a lot of my clients are feeling that pressure. And a lot of people have been talking to me about what they can do to begin to make the second half of 2018 a lot easier and more streamlined and more graceful than what the beginning of the year has been. And if I don't know where you've been on this spectrum, but I know for myself, 2018 so far has been a bit of a weird one. I thought 2017 was meant to be the, sledgehammer to the face, and it was in a lot of beautiful, beautiful ways. But I think that 2018 has kind of had its own energy going on. There's been a huge call for rest, for reflection. There's been this huge moving away from hustle and push and now into a state of receiving that for many of us has been a difficult space to transition into because it goes against the grain of much of what we're taught about business and much of how we ourselves have been running our businesses. So for this episode, I'm not going to add more to your plate by telling you what you need to be doing with the next 6 months of your business. I'm not going to be jamming more strategies down your throat or telling you that you're doing anything wrong. Instead, I want to give you some simple, easy to implement steps that you can do right now to bring yourself off the ledge of some of that overwhelm and back into a state of alignment so it is easier for you to answer those questions of what do I want 2018 to give me? What does the next 6 months need to look like in order for me to reach the level I want to in my life and business? Because you can't answer those bigger questions if you are out of alignment and in a state of stress and scarcity and suffocating your energy because you've contracted yourself inwards. The only answers you get when you're in that space are the exact same answers that have come from your past, which means that you are setting yourself up to replicate that past into your future. And I want you to be able to elevate and move through and above those patterns into something new and exciting and vibrant in your life and business. Tip number 1 is to remove the noise. This is a big one. There can be so much going on in our environment that is just beyond our awareness. We're not really focusing on it, but our bodies and our subconscious is still having to filter that extra data. And it means that more of our focus is being sucked away from the current tasks we're doing and is being dispersed across all these different avenues from all of our senses being activated in a way that really isn't helpful to us in that moment. So for example, I know for myself, if there is a clock ticking anywhere in my house, oh my God, it puts me into a place where I just want to smash it against the wall. I can't handle repetitive noise. So ticking clocks, dripping taps, things like that, they just set my teeth on edge. Even if I'm not sitting there specifically thinking of the ticking clock, just the fact that it's going on and it's just that little bit outside of my awareness, it sets my teeth on edge and I have trouble concentrating, and that greatly contributes to my sense of overwhelm. By having extra sensory stimulus going on in my environment, that means that I am more activated and more aware and more heightened than what I need to be. Okay, and this may be the same for you, where, for example, if you live right by a road, you might find it really hard to concentrate if there's traffic going by all the time, or there's sirens, or there's extra noise going on in your environment that makes it hard for you to really dip in and sink in and absorb yourself fully in a task until it's complete. And so my first tip would be to remove that extra sensory stimulation from your environment. And it can be as simple as just closing the laundry door if you've got the dishwasher going when you're working. It can be as simple as shutting your office window if there's a lot of noise going on outside. A little trick that I like to do, and this is like, if this doesn't land with you, you're probably going to think I'm a weirdo, and I'm okay with that. But I like to wear big fuzzy headphones. You know, those big like studio headphones. I have a pair of those that I listened during my meditation, and I will just have those on my head. And I'll just walk around the house with these on, not even plugged into anything. I'm not listening to music. I'm not listening to a podcast. The cord isn't even plugged into a device. It's just dangling, because just having that extra little bit of cushioning gives me just that extra little bit of buffer zone. It takes that hard edge off the sounds in my environment, so that the sound of my phone ringing or the sound of traffic or the sound of my dog barking, it's not nearly as splitting and it's not as jarring as those noises can be if there's no cushioning around them. So for myself, just having my headphones on, and I have them on at the moment, I have them on right now, really, really helps me. And there's actually a bit of a funny story that accompanies this. And this is another thing as well when it comes to really being able to navigate and prevent overwhelm, is knowing your overwhelm triggers. So for example, for myself, I know that 3 days is my absolute maximum for any kind of group activity or group environment, like summits, attending events, speaking at workshops, facilitating events. I know for myself that 3 days is my absolute cap. Beyond that point, I begin to get a little bit fidgety, antsy, irritated, very, very tired, to the point where I can barely stay awake. And I get into a little bit of porcupine Blair mode, where everything just goes, my energetic spikes go bing, and I don't want anyone around me. You know what? Now that I'm saying that out loud, my limit's probably 2 days. I just realized that. I think I'm wishing it's 3 days, because that makes more sense and probably makes me sound like a more tolerant human being. But in full reality, full disclosure, it's 2 days. At that 2-day mark, beyond that point, I really reach my threshold for being around people and being around other people's energy. And earlier in the year, I was at a 2-day event, and because I had taken a overnight flight, a red-eye flight from one side of the country to the other, I had had no sleep. I was very tired. There was just a lot going on, and I was in a room full of about 50 people for 2 days straight. And at one point, we all broke off to do our work at our tables, and because everyone was talking, it was just a lot going on, and I was at my threshold, and I put these headphones on and just tucked the cord into my suitcase that was next to me. And one of my friends and colleagues kind of looked over at me, and he gets it, and he just kind of looked at me, he's like, "You're not even listening to music, are you?" And And it wasn't because I didn't want people to talk to me. It was because I just needed that little bit of buffer zone. I just needed the edge to be taken off of my environment, and having something on my head. For some people, this is actually sunglasses. I have a good friend that always has sunglasses on top of her head, no matter whether it's nighttime, no matter whether it's raining and the sun's not even out. She'll always have sunnies on top of her head, because just having that little bit of pressure gives that little bit of extra comfort. And I think, my personal theory on that is that it goes back to being swaddled as children. Like, we liked to be enclosed. It makes us feel safe and secure. So if you're at your kind of edge when it comes to dealing with people, just putting your sunnies on top of your head and just having that little bit of downward pressure on the top of your head, on the fontanelle, which is the soft part. You can find it if you just run your fingers along the suture on the middle of your skull, and you'll find that you've kind of got a little bit of a soft spot. My headphones actually rest on that exact point. You'll find that can actually begin to calm you down a little bit and makes you feel a bit comforted, and it also takes the edge off your environment by just grounding your energy back in. So that was a very long way of me explaining the first tip. The first tip being remove the noise. So if it is within your control, and I know that if you work from home, or maybe you do work in an office part-time while you get your business up and running, or maybe you've got kids, or we've always got stuff going on in our environment. I'm not by any means saying that you can't be in the world if you want to have a successful business, but what I'm saying is that taking control of the elements in your environment that are in your control goes a long way to minimizing the overwhelm. My second tip, and this is probably going to seem so obvious to you, but it's been amazing for me, is close your tabs. Again, this is going to seem super obvious, but close your tabs. When you're working on your laptop or at your computer, you can have tabs upon tabs open. You've got your email account open, you've got your Facebook and your social media, you've got your Canva if you're creating graphics for your business. You can have all these different things open, like ClickFunnels, and maybe you've got some invoicing that you're doing on the side. You can have so many tabs open, and you may not be using half of them. And again, this is a subconscious thing. You may not consciously be sitting there freaking out about this, but subconsciously it's not giving your mind a break, because all it is constantly displaying all these extra bits that are needing your attention and needing your focus. So it becomes quite hard to fully commit to one task and to focus your energy on a result if you've got all these extra little bits going on. And again, it's like having the overabundance of sensory stimulation in your environment. The same is true for what's happening on your screen. So if you are feeling overwhelmed, or you just feel like you're stagnating, maybe you're hitting the point in your day where you're just not getting productive and you feel like you're just hitting your head against a wall, one of my favorite things to do is to close all my tabs. Just close everything, save everything, shut everything down, and I shut my computer down. I give myself that clean slate. Even if I'm in the middle of something, I just save it, close it, and off I go. I'll go have a cup of tea, I'll go outside, breathe some air, might take my dog for a quick walk. You break state. And that's one of the tips as well, is to break state by actually removing yourself from the environment that is triggering the overwhelm. And then when I come back, I turn on my computer, and I just open up the absolute essentials. I will just open up the tab of whatever it is I'm working on. So it may seem super simple. I may not be necessarily rocking your world with this, but the results for you can be huge in just settling your nervous system down and focusing your attention and your energy on one thing. So close your tabs and make life easier for yourself. Tip number 3, work in threes. If you're anything like me, your to-do list can tend to include 50,000 things that no human being can conceivably achieve in any amount of time, maybe in like 2 years. But certainly not within 24 hours. And so what I always suggest for my clients that tend to put a little bit too much on their plate, that tend to over-expect from what they can achieve in a day, not because they're not capable, but just because they've maybe put way too many things on there that cannot be conceivably achieved, then we break it down into 3. We look at what are 3 things that you are going to get done in that day. Just 3 things. And then you circle the priority. So rather than having a list of 1,000 things that you think that you need to get done right now, instead you're just choosing 3. And this is a very, very good way of bumping off the things on your to-do list that are actually not income producing and are not moving your business forward and are not growing you as a person. They're the 3 major things that you need to be looking at when it comes to growing your business. Is it income producing? Is it growing you as a person? And is it moving your business forward and towards your goals? They don't have to be all three things at the same time, but they need to be hitting one of those, because otherwise we become lost in the busyness. We're just doing for the sake of doing and not actually being productive and not moving us forward. And the surefire sign that you're doing this is if you look at your to-do list and it hasn't actually changed in a week and it's the same things on there, then I guarantee you that you're spinning your wheels somewhere. You're doing something that isn't actually a priority, but is just keeping you busy and distracted. So you choose 3 things that you need to do and circle the priority. And make it okay if you only get the priority done. And the priority doesn't have to be complicated. It can be sending a really important email that you've maybe been putting off, or organizing a payment plan for a client. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. It just has to be something that is important that you need to do that day. And then you've achieved something. You're giving yourself an easy win. And that's one of the things that is really going to help you with overwhelm is set yourself up for success. Give yourself some easy wins. And the best way to do that is to pick 3 things from your to-do list that you want to achieve that day and circle the priority and make it okay if only the priority gets done, because then at the end of the day, at least you've done something and you can give yourself a bit of a break. And then the perfect thing is that you then have your next priority task for the next day. How great's that? You just go down to the second thing that was on the list. And one thing that I like to do, because as I said, I am someone that likes to make my to-do list quite big and quite unreasonable and stress myself out as a result, is I usually break my tasks down into 3 tasks a day, and I make it okay if that 3 things is actually something I only achieve over the course of the week. That's okay, because as long as you're doing something, you're still moving forward, which is a lot better than doing nothing because you're overwhelmed and stressed out and you don't know where to start. So pick 3 things, pick the priority, and make that your goal for the day. And my 4th tip, and this also actually links into the previous one I just gave you, is to break those 3 things down into bite-sized chunks. And the really important thing to know here is the difference between a task and an outcome. Building a website and putting that on your to-do list is not a task. That is an outcome that is comprised of many tiny tasks. And it's amazing how many entrepreneurs I see doing this. When I sit down with them and we look at their goals, we look at what they want to achieve, and we strategize the best way to get to their desired outcome, and they'll put down, okay, on Tuesday I'm going to build a website. And I'm just like, how long is your Tuesday? Because I don't know about you, but my Tuesday is 24 hours. And unless you are some kind of bizarre superhuman, or unless you already have a complete template that is linked up in all the perfect ways and has all the information already in it, building a website within 24 hours, that's a lot of pressure to put yourself under, especially since a lot of the entrepreneurs I work with, their website would be from scratch. To build a website from scratch in one day, that's a big ask. That's overwhelming. And that's because a website is not a task. It's an outcome that is comprised of many tasks. And so the best way to do that then is to take your outcome, say for example the website, and break it down into bite-sized pieces. And I'm talking bite-sized because again, give yourself an easy win. Breaking down what you need to do from the get-go, such as purchasing a domain, researching the best deal on hosting, and buying your hosting, they are 3 tasks. They're just 3 very tiny tasks, but they are necessary if you want to get to the desired outcome of building a website. So instead of having on your to-do list, build a website, and it sits there for months on end because you just don't know where to start, or it's too overwhelming, or it keeps getting lost in the rest of the stuff that you're trying to do, is have a separate list that breaks down that outcome into bite-sized chunks, into bite-sized tasks. And again, circling the priority. So perhaps all you get done in that day, if you are busy and life is happening in different ways, if the only thing you get done that day is researching the best deal for hosting and comparing different hosting services for your website, if that's all you get done that day, that is still a win. You are still moving forward towards that desired outcome of having a website. That's going to make you feel a lot more confident and a lot more competent in your own abilities, and is going to move you forward and help decrease that overwhelm a whole lot better than just having build a website on your list and have it sitting there for months at a time and have yourself in a state of stress every time you look at that list that isn't shifting. And then finally, step 5, my final tip is don't be afraid to ask for help. You're not meant to do it on your own. No one has built huge successful businesses on their own. We all get help somewhere, and this is why having a community that you can lean on is so important, or having a coach is so important. And the reason why I say that is because I was the hardcore procrastinator that was constantly spinning my wheels. I was the entrepreneur who was new to business and had no freaking idea what I was doing, and having a coach really helped turn things around for me. And that's exactly what I do for my own clients, is I help them get that sequence and logic and structure. I help them plan out exactly what they need to do in their business so that when they wake up on a Monday, they know what they're doing. They're not having to waste time in overwhelm and stress trying to nut it out on their own, or having all these conflicting ideas in their heads or all these conflicting obligations. Instead, we have done the work together to work out exactly what they need to do when. So all they have to do is wake up and just do the work and follow the sequence. And we tweak it and refine it as we go, as life happens, which it is bound and designed to do. So step number 5 for overcoming overwhelm and getting yourself in alignment and back on track is to ask for help. So joining a Facebook group of women who are walking the entrepreneurial path alongside you. And if you're called to, then by all means, join my private Facebook group. Go to www.blairrhianna.com/group and click the button to join, and I'll add you. Or there are so many entrepreneur groups out there where you can ask questions, where you can see what others are doing, not from a place of comparison, but from a place of just getting a sense of how people sequence their activities in their businesses. And if you really need the additional support, I would really highly recommend that you speak to a coach and find someone whose energy you feel really comfortable with, who you feel really understands where you come from and what you need, and it can help you move forward and can map the journey out with you. Because one of the most overwhelming elements of running our own businesses is the feeling like we have to do it all ourselves and that we're doing it on our own and there's no one that we can ask for help. There is help always there. You just need to be prepared to reach your hand out in order to grab hold of the hand that is there waiting. So I hope that you found this episode helpful for my top 5 tips for decreasing and moving through overwhelm. Tip number 1, remove the noise. Get rid of the noise in your external environment and become more in control of your space when you're working. Number 2, close your tabs. Get rid of the stuff on your computer that's just distracting you. And this also includes airplane mode. The world is not going to explode if you are not getting Facebook notifications or if you spend 2 hours a day where no one can contact you. Okay, so don't be afraid to put your phone on airplane mode if you are needing to focus on a task. Step number 3, work in 3s. Instead of having a huge to-do list, pick 3 things that you will want to achieve that day and circle the priority, and actually only focus on the priority. Then it becomes okay if those other tasks are only what you achieve throughout the rest of the week. Be flexible with your own schedule and be forgiving of the fact that you can't get everything done in one day because you're not meant to. And then step number 4 is to break those 3 things down into bite-sized tasks. And this comes with knowing the difference between a task and an outcome. Take a big outcome, such as a website, and break it down into those bite-sized tasks that you can set aside time to do and work through so that you give yourself an easy win along the way. The best way to build your confidence and consistency in business is give yourself some easy wins. Don't make things excessively hard on yourself, because otherwise it becomes very hard to stick with this entrepreneurial path. And of course, step number 5 is don't be afraid to ask for help and seek out the support of a coach if you feel like you need that additional support of someone holding your hand, guiding you along the way and helping you map out the path to your own success in whatever way that looks like for you. And if you found this episode helpful, I would absolutely love if you subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to, or on iTunes or on SoundCloud, or even leaving me a little review if you found it particularly helpful. I'd absolutely love to hear from you if these tips have been useful to you. Oh, and of course, I almost forgot. I am going to announce the winner of the podcast launch giveaway competition. And the winner is, oh my god, I'm going to butcher your name, I'm so sorry. Mate Dusu from America, I believe. So, Hannah, again, so sorry I just butchered your name. I could feel how clunky that was coming out of my mouth, which is why I'm going to be sending you a private email to let you know that you have won so that you and I can set up a time for your private 90-minute business visioning and soul alignment session. And I cannot wait to help you map out your own personal pathway for the next 6 months and to get you energetically aligned mind, body, and soul towards that vision so you can move towards it with ease and grace. And thank you so much for your beautiful review, which I will just read now. Blair Rhianna is talking about what we all as women need to hear. She doesn't just cover what to do, but gives a perspective that as women we don't talk about enough. And if we want success, we have to understand how to show up for ourselves so that we can then show up as our best self for others. I have thoroughly enjoyed each podcast episode and look forward to more. Thank you for showing up and being real. No, thank you so much for that beautiful review, and I cannot wait to be in touch with you for us to connect next week for your session. And of course, for everyone else, again, thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. I cannot wait to hear how you go in the comments either on the blog at blairrhianna.com/8 or when you leave a review on iTunes or SoundCloud. So I hope you have a wonderful week, and I cannot wait to see you shine your light in the way that only you can. Bye for now.